Welcome back to the Hair of the Dog podcast. I'm your host, Nicole Begley, and today we're talking with Erin Bonilla of Bonilla Pet Studio. And she has grown her business from a solopreneur to a business of over 30 employees in 2 locations with 3 camera rooms, 3 sales rooms, and shooting an average of 200 sessions a month. We're going to be diving into how she did it, what that journey was like, and some of the biggest secrets to her success. Stay tuned.
Welcome to the Hair of the Dog podcast. If you're a pet photographer ready to make more money and start living a life by your design, you've come to the right place. And now, your host, pet photographer, travel addict, chocolate martini connoisseur, Nicole Begley.
Hey everybody, Nicole here from Hair of the Dog, and welcome back to the Hair of the Dog podcast. I have a very special guest with us today. Super excited for this conversation. Welcome, Erin Bonilla, please, to the podcast. Erin, welcome to the Hair of the Dog podcast.
Hi, Nicole. Thank you for inviting me. I'm very happy to be here too.
Of course. I'm so excited to chat with you because it's no secret. I love business and I love the business of photography and just really all business. And you have taken Bonilla Pet Studio to just new heights with multiple locations. And I just can't wait to talk to you about that today. So congratulations.
Thank you so much. I'm really excited about it.
Yay.
What we've done. I'm excited to talk to you about it too.
Awesome. So take us way back. Like, when did you start photographing? How long have you been a photographer?
Oh my gosh, way back till I was 10 years old, probably. My mom and dad were both photographers. And so they taught me a lot of basics of photography at a really young age. But fast forward to 2014 is when I got my first DSLR camera and started photographing people pretty soon after that. And I started photographing guinea pigs, rabbits, frogs, dogs, cats, all kinds of things in my basement with a friend around that same time too. Yeah. And I didn't start a business until 2016.
Okay. When you started that business, were you doing pets then, or were you doing people and some pets on the side?
I was photographing anything that I could get hired to photograph. So events, very small weddings, engagements, and not too many pets. I think I got one pet photography job from Thumbtack during that time. And that was really cool. But I really didn't think that was a market that I would be able to specialize in at that time. Right. And I was working with a mentor and she encouraged me to specialize in it. And I would think that, I would say to her that, when you get married or you have a senior in high school, people know about that kind of photography, right. But who at home with 4 cats and a dog is on Google, looking for them to be photographed, because there's no awareness for that. So I really struggled with jumping in to commit to specialize in that for quite a while.
Yeah, no, I think that's one of the biggest things I always say too with pet photography is there's very little urgency, only if the pet is older or possibly a puppy. But other than that, like that whole main part of the pet's life, there's not really this urgency. It's so easy for people to just go ahead and put their plans to get pet photography on the back burner. And, where you're graduating high school, you have a newborn baby, even family photography. It's like, we want to get pictures before they lose their teeth. And now that they lost their teeth, like you have these still milestones that kind of encourage people to get out and book. So yeah, that definitely makes it a little bit more challenging in the pet genre, but it is 100% worth it. And I think we are starting to get some more awareness in the market, but there's still a long way to go because so many people, at least when I talk to them and say I'm a pet photographer, they're like, really? Just pets? But a few more people are starting to understand it now.
Yep, I totally agree with you. And it also just, it's kind of a wide open market because, there are so many newborn photographers. And 30 years ago, it was sort of the same thing with newborn photography. It wasn't really a thing that people did. But now there are so many of them. And I feel that that's where we are with pet photography right now.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. In the pet industry, I'm going to totally make up the numbers, but they're large. The amount of spending that people spend on their pets in the pet industry. Mm-hmm. So there's definitely a lot of room to grow here.
It was over $7 billion
Wow.
in 2020, I believe.
Yeah.
2021, they haven't released the numbers yet, but over 7 billion is 68% of all US households own a pet. And
Wow.
86% of those pet owners own a cat or a dog.
I love it. I love it. That's fantastic. So you started your business in 2016, mostly kind of people, a dog here or there. When did you kind of start to make the jump to pet photography? And were you doing like on location, or were you doing studio back then? Kind of what did that transition look like?
So what happened was that I remember how I said that I was making portraits of animals in my basement with my friend, right? So we would make these artistic pictures, and I wanted to take those photographs to art shows. So, because I was creating art, so I was thinking, where am I going to sell this art? Because I'm an entrepreneur at heart, right? So I knew about art shows, and so I applied for my first art show, and I took the animal pictures there. I was working with a mentor for my photography business, and she recommended that I bring an enter to win box to the art show, so that when people see the pictures of animals, I can say, I can photograph your animal. Here, give me your information. And so I started collecting the information of pet owners at that time. That was in the end of 2016. And so that's when I really started picking up and doing more pet portraits. And it was all in studio. So I started in my living room. Mm-hmm. And then after the art show, I went to a pet expo, and I gathered 150 leads from that pet expo. And I had measured how many portraits I got from the leads that I collected at the art show. So I knew that my closing ratio, this is a really, important number to know.
Right.
My closing ratio for those leads from the art show was 12%. So I figured that if I got 150 from the pet expo that I went to, then that was going to be, whatever 12% of 150 is, 20 or something like that. And at that time I was doing, consultation, shoot, and sale as 3 separate appointments. And I knew that 60 different appointments cannot be coming to my house. Right. So I was forced to grow into getting in a commercial studio space. So I lucked out and found one that was 9 minutes away from my house, and little 850 square foot office for $600 a month. Yeah. And so I moved into that. That was in March of 2017.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. And then how long did it take? Because right now, go ahead and give us a lowdown of where you are now. So you have 2 locations, and you're outside of DC?
So we're in Southeast Virginia. I have one studio inside of a mall in downtown Norfolk, Virginia. That studio is 3,200 square feet, and it has 1 camera room and 1 sales room. Yep. And then I have another studio that we just opened that is in Williamsburg, Virginia. It's about an hour away from the Norfolk location. And this studio where I am now, it has 2 camera rooms and 2 client theaters. That's
fantastic. So with 3 camera rooms, it can't just be you doing all the photography.
I actually don't do any of the photography right now. Really? Wow. I also don't do any of the sales. I actually don't do any of the part of my business that comes in contact with customers. Yeah. So there are 30, we call them pet enthusiasts on the team. Love it. And we have 4 people who do the photography, and I have 4 people who do sales. So some of them cross over. One of those people is a photographer and a salesperson. We have 2 people who head up the order fulfillment department. I have 4 people on phones, 1 person who's customer service, and a marketing person. And so, me and my husband. That's fantastic.
Yeah. So with your customer service person, is that person kind of like the point of contact for each client? Like once they become a client, so they have kind of one person follows them through the process?
Sort of. So my processes are very automated. Yeah. My clients, just like most people these days, prefer automation, email, text messages. to make it really convenient for them. And she does very little. She does confirmation calls. She takes inbound calls. People call and say they're lost. And,
Right.
if any of our phone people can help with that sort of thing. So, and then the other, calls we get are checking on their artwork orders. So then they, would forward the calls to them. But there really isn't a whole lot of customer service issues because our processes are very streamlined, and we really make a strong effort to answer questions before they come up.
Yeah.
And since also the processes are simplified for efficiency, so we don't get a lot of issues. We don't get a lot of questions. We don't get fires that have to be put out.
Yeah. No, this is huge. And if you guys are listening at home and you're like, oh, I don't need processes because it's just me. False. Every business needs a lot of processes, but running a business now that's the size of yours really can't function in any sort of sanity without processes. But even if you're a one-man show, those processes can help you, have those repeatable experiences for everybody, save you so much time, and actually give you more freedom in your business because you don't have to spend the mental bandwidth to figure out what the next step is because it's all taken care of. So talk to me, Erin, a little bit about how you went from, the one photographer business in that small space to, now we have the 2 studios. What was your first hire like? Because as someone who has, 4 people on my team, that first hire was really pivotal. And there was a lot of all sorts of craziness going on in my head prior to that first person. But then once you, at least for me, brought on that first person and realized, oh my gosh, how much helpful they are and how they can take so much off your plate. And then I can actually focus on other things that are more impactful for the business and my students. Then it becomes almost addictive to continue to get more help in your business. So what was it like for you for that first hire?
Well, the first hire was a prior client, and she also used to help me with babysitting. And I think I had all of these leads to go through or appointments to schedule, or I don't even remember exactly what it was that I asked her for help with at the beginning. And also when I would go to the trade shows and events, I would get help to do that too. That's a lot of work. So, I would ask the lady who used to bring the animals to my basement. Her name is Heather. I would ask her to help. And that was tons of fun. So, my first hires was really unofficial. It was, I need some help. If I pay you this much, will you help me? Right. And then they're like, yeah, sure. I could show up. So it really just, you don't have to know everything before you start getting help from other people. Yeah. And I don't recommend necessarily starting that way, but, as an entrepreneur and somebody who just has a vision and pushes forward and does whatever it takes to get it done, I'm not necessarily like a huge, got to have everything laid out perfectly before I will take those steps. So, I hired her by the hour to help, and she actually started making calls to the leads. And that was one of the first things that I had people helping me with, because that is a very time consuming task. And then when I moved into the small little studio space, my first one, I hired more people. So I hired another phone caller. I hired one person who was just administrative assistant. So returning emails, returning calls, filing office paperwork, dealing with licenses and, whatever around the office, help, dropping things off, picking things up. Right. And I really learned the hard way about leadership in a lot of different areas. And that's how we expanded to the administrative office, because I would hire more people, but we ran out of space in that tiny little 850 square foot office. So I leased a space that was a block away and turned that into an admin office. And then I would hire people for just my post-production. So all they would do is export the images that the people purchased, edit them, order them, receive the artwork, unpack, schedule pickups, all of the order fulfillment process. And so it just kind of started building on until in 2018, the end of 2018, I found out that I was going to have a baby. And I was the only photographer. I had trained someone to do sales, but I was the only photographer. So I had, at that time, it only cost about $20,000 a month to run the business.
Yeah.
And
that's
so
still significant though, when you're looking at, I'm going to have a baby and want to maybe stay at home for a couple weeks,
exactly.
a couple months.
Yeah. So I was thinking I could either, burn through $20,000 for 2 months or 40 grand or whatever. I mean, you could probably, scale some of that down, but just close it down and pay the bills and not have any money coming in. Or I could teach somebody to do the photography in the studio and keep it open, because that was the end of 2018. I still had a few months before I was expecting the baby. So I found a young lady named Megan, and it might make me a little emotional because she just left. She just left us to move away with her fiance. So, but she joined the business then, the end of 2018. I taught her how to make the portraits. And that's when I realized that if I could make the business run without me, then it was scalable.
Right.
And if it was scalable, I could go on Shark Tank.
I love it.
I started really researching scaling up and entrepreneurship and getting angel investment and what's required for that. So I started learning a lot more about the business fundamentals at that point.
Yeah.
So,
wow. That had to be hard. I mean, it definitely helped that you were put in a position where it's like, all right, here's my choice. It costs 20 grand to keep the doors open. So that's a lot of motivation to figure out another solution. But I imagine for most people, and probably even for you too, but that decision made it a little bit easier by that looming deadline, is to give up the control. I mean, because let's face it, most of us as artists are control enthusiasts. And then, your name's on the business and you're like, oh my gosh, it's not even my work. That it's somebody else shooting. Was that hard, or was it, were you able to just really kind of compartmentalize and be like, all right, like this is a process, and just really, really broke down the creation of the images as like a process? Kind of what was that like for you?
Well, for one thing, I'm definitely more of an entrepreneur than I am an artist. Right?
Okay.
So I am fueled and very passionate by any entrepreneurial type endeavor in my business, the planning, the visioning, the optimism and the leadership. So that is really my passion. I love photography. I'm gifted in photography. But let me tell you something, Nicole. The first day that you are with your family and you're at the park, you're laying out by the beach, and there are 10 portraits going on in your studio and you're still making money and you are at home relaxing. That feeling for me is much more fulfilling than constantly being tied to the business as the only one who can perform that task.
Right.
And to me, that is so much more fulfilling. It is so much more satisfying. And also it's just freeing, because I think that's actually one of the pitfalls in the photography industry is so much emphasis on the photographer as being the brand. You put our name and photography at the end. And time is the only resource that we cannot get more of.
Right.
And until we let go of control and learn to delegate tasks to other people, we will always be limited in our growth and our potential because we can't get more time.
Right. Right.
And as long as somebody can do the job, at least 80%, this is the general rule, at least 80% as well as you can, then you should delegate it to somebody else. And really, you also have to remember, what is the benefit to the client? If we can provide the same quality of portrait to the client, it doesn't matter who is creating the portrait. The client doesn't care if it is Erin behind the camera or if it is Allie behind the camera. What they care about is the benefit to them.
Right.
It's the service that we offer to them. They care about themselves. And if they are getting portraits that they love, that they want to display in their home, they're getting the outcome that they're looking for. They don't care who took it.
Yep. Yeah. No, it's our own ego. It's our own artist artist heart that I think just becomes, challenging, because this is, I mean, so many people get into photography because they love the photography more than the business. But you don't have to love the business more, but I think you need to give the business as much attention, likely probably even a little bit more than the artist side, if you actually want to run a really successful business, because, it still is a business.
Yeah, because also it is a service. It's a service that we're offering to our clients. And if you want to create art, then there is a place to sell art, and that's at art shows and in galleries, and you become a well-known artist. If you want to provide the service of portraits to the public, then that's not necessarily the same thing. You have to think about
really good
what is the outcome that our clients are looking for. And I think there's just too much emphasis that's placed on the photographer as being this irreplaceable artist in the business, and not enough emphasis on what is it that the clients really care about? What is it that they are here for?
Yep. Yeah. Oh my gosh, for sure. I actually want to jump back a little bit, because you mentioned before about your closing ratio, which I love, because I love tracking numbers. And I think the numbers can tell us so much about our business. And I think so few people actually do that. You ask them, like, what number of inquiries do you actually book? And they're like, I don't know. Maybe 15%, 20. I don't, it's like making it up based on what they think, but they're not actually tracking, like, all right, I got 10 inquiries this month and I booked 5. Okay, great. So would you say, I'm thinking that these metrics are definitely a huge key to your success. Do you agree? And if so, what are the most important metrics that you track?
Okay, yes. I'm tracking metrics every single day, every week, every month. So there are 2 different kinds of metrics. I mean, there's probably a lot more different kinds, but for me, there's 2. There's KPIs, and then there's critical drivers. So KPIs are your key performance indicators, right? And so for my business, our key performance indicators are how many sessions per month, closing ratio, average sale, average turnaround time, customer satisfaction, how many mistakes in ordering, safety incidents like bites, stuff like that, which that KPI goal always has to be 0. That was a fun conversation. Like, what would our safety goal be? Oh, it has to be 0 incidents, right? Okay. Have a goal of only, we didn't get our 1 incident this month, you guys. It'll be a little bit more rough with the dog. No, I'm just kidding. And then the difference is that, that's kind of looking back. That's looking back at what we've done in the last weeks, in the last month, in order to get these kind of results, like portraits per month, right? How many portraits do we have this month? How many portraits we have next month? But sort of looking back at the efforts that we've made up to this point. That's the difference between KPIs and critical drivers. A critical driver is what creates or produces the results of the KPIs. So a critical driver would be, did I say how many leads? So leads coming in, number of leads coming in is both a KPI and a critical driver, because when we're looking back, it would say how many leads did we get? How many did we book? That's our closing ratio. But we have a critical driver. How many leads do we want to be getting every day? And then how many outbound calls do we make every day? And that's my number one, is actually that how many outbound calls. That's our number one critical driver, because if we don't, get the leads, we don't make the calls, we don't book the portraits, we can't get an average sale, we can't get a turnaround time, we don't have those opportunities. So that's number one. And I've just developed those over the last 5 years of noticing what is important, what we need to track. And a really good book, it's called The Road Less Stupid.
I haven't heard of that one.
Yeah, he talks a lot about KPIs and critical drivers. A lot of really good information in there about that.
That's fantastic. The KPIs are also out of Traction. Have you read Traction?
No, I haven't.
Oh, it's really good. Gino Wickman. It's a lot about setting up your business on having the vision and the mission, and then having these KPIs, and basically having someone on your team that's responsible for like each KPI, like they own it. So it's really, really good. There's also what's the other one? Rocket Fuel is about the relationship between like the visionary in your business and integrator, which, the visionary would be you as the CEO of someone who has the vision and is moving the ship forward. And then the integrator would probably be like, if you have a manager at the different locations or a manager kind of like director of operations overseeing the business.
Yeah, that's definitely, I got to read that one, Rocket Fuel, because that's definitely me and my husband. I'm the entrepreneur visionary and he's the COO engineer, retired from the military. So
nice.
That's a perfect example. But I wanted to go back really quick, Nicole, and about, the solopreneurs, and they maybe don't know the numbers as well. And they're like, well, why do I need to? Or I'm photographing 5 or 6 a month. Why take the time to measure these things?
Right.
But if you're measuring, let's just say the leads or how many contacts how many people you come in contact with and how many actually turn into clients, then for one thing, you're able to see where you can improve and what's working, what's not working. And then you're able to predict. So since I know that our closing ratio is about 13 to 15%, it varies, then I know how many sessions I want to have. And I can just kind of work backwards from that to say, well, if I want to have 200 sessions and my closing ratio is 15%, then I need to get in contact with this many people. And so if I need to get in contact, if they want to have 12 sessions a month and they have a closing ratio of 10%, they need to talk to 120 people. How many people is that per week? Right? How many people per day? And then you think of, where am I going to find them and how am I going to improve that process? So it really helps you to see where you can improve in your business and gives you the ability to plan and predict what's going to happen in the future.
Yeah. Know what else I love about this is that, a lot of times people make goals that are outcome-based goals that you don't really have control over the end. My goal is to have 5 clients spend $5,000. Okay. You don't actually have the control of how much they're going to spend. Yeah, you can set up all these different things, but what you do have control of are those key drivers of the actions that you are going to take that will get the people in the door that will then spend the money so you can hit that goal. So I love to encourage people to set up goals. Like if you took your breakdown of these numbers of knowing that you want 200 sessions, so you need to get in touch with 1,200 leads and break it down. So we have to call, I don't know, I'm making up math, 30 people a day. Then it's all right, my goal is to contact 30 people a day, or my goal is to get, 20 leads a week, whatever it is based on your business. Then you have this actual number that is a goal of your action. It's binary. You either did it or you didn't. And it's not waiting for anybody else for the result and then that's going to lead to the hitting, I think, more of those monetary goals.
And it's not the funnest thing to do either, but it is very rewarding when you start to see the results and you actually see it pay off. And then it'll be so much easier to do it in the future. And Grant Cardone says, take incredible action until you have new problems. Yeah. And that shows you that the numbers, the metrics, they tell you where the action needs to be first.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh my gosh. This is just so, I love it so much. And I love the fact that you've taken this business that, quite frankly, so many people struggle to fill up a calendar. And you have taken it to a point of 2 very busy studios with 3 camera rooms and multiple photographers. And even to the fact that you aren't shooting, you aren't doing the operations, that you're managing the overall vision of the business. Gosh, just congratulations. It's incredible. And I love it so much. What would you have to say for, photographers that, because I think this is where people struggle a lot too, is, we all have our own stuff in our head. So I'm sure you've worked through all sorts of limiting beliefs and things that have come up as you went from having a small studio of your own to hiring new people, adding new locations, building this out, creating the team, creating the processes. We always come up against these limiting beliefs and then we get over it. And then there's oh my gosh, a new thing. So many photographers I see are, building their business and they've created a website and they are on social media and they're kind of waiting for leads and clients to come to them. Or maybe they go out and they get a couple leads, but there's not really a process to, move those leads along in the process to actually get them to convert to full clients. And a lot of the times the reason is because they have so much doubt in their head or imposter syndrome or just feeling like, who am I? Or I'm going to bother them by asking. And so they just don't. Do you have any words of advice to help people get more comfortable with taking those types of actions?
Wow. There's a lot of different questions in there.
I know, I'm sorry. I just went on.
No, it's okay. So, that fear of rejection, I think, and that resistance that people feel to reaching out, it really is a resistance. And I think it comes from a fear of rejection, a fear of failure. But that, like you said, of the limiting beliefs, so for one thing, there's another good book. It's called The Big Leap. And it talks about,
favorite.
Have you read that? Yeah. So it talks about, our capacity to feel positive emotions and how when we get to the edge of our comfort zone, we'll do things to self-sabotage and because we're not used to feeling, better than that. So that is a really good one for as far as limiting beliefs. But there's two specific incidences that I can remember when I really saw my limiting beliefs. And the first one was when I had hired somebody to make the calls, to make the bookings. And I had set a goal for 30 for the month.
Yep.
And she surpassed it. And she's like, I'm setting the goal to 50. And I start getting kind of freaked out. I'm like, that's literally the maximum capacity. Like I cannot shoot more than 50. But what I did is, and actually it was even before that, it had to do with weight loss. I used to have this belief, because it's so ingrained in us, that a healthy weight loss is no more than 3 to 4 pounds a week. Right. And so when I would start to make progress, I would sabotage myself because I was bumping into that limiting belief. And so once I took that limit off and just thought there's no limit to how much weight I can lose, and I made my portion smaller, that's when the weight really started to drop. And that's the first time that I encountered a limiting belief, that I took the limit off and I saw progress. And then the second time was with the phone calls. And I just said, you know what, there's no limit to how many portraits we can book in the month. And we just booked as many as possible. And that was another kind of light bulb moment, that I had put the cap there and she was going to bust through it. And then the third one was when we were trying to get to 50,000 for the month. And I had hired this salesperson. It's a long, ridiculous story. I think he worked one day, and I feel like he came in my life to tell me one thing. And he said, well, if we can get to 50, we can get to 100,000. And I was just like, you're insane. You're totally crazy. That's never going to happen. But it was, and then I recognized, oh, that's a limiting belief that I have. Right. And so I feel like that's impossible. And now we're doing more than that every single month now. So it's only impossible until you do it. Yeah. And I think that one of the biggest things to help people overcome that is to at least recognize it. You can't overcome that limiting belief until you see it. So just be on the lookout and say, oh, that's a belief I have, and then challenge it. What evidence do you have to say that that's true? Right. Have you ever seen anybody else, or have you ever experienced it yourself that might not be true? And that's another way too, because these positive affirmations, and things we say, you have to really believe it. And if you don't really believe that that's possible for a positive affirmation, it's really hard to make it stick in your heart. Right. Yeah. And so I find also that just saying it may be possible, it could be possible that I could do that. And just give yourself a little bit of permission to start believing it a little bit. Yeah. And then the whole fear of rejection, the fear of bothering people really need to shift the way that they think about that. So I have a great way to overcome it. Imagine this. You are a stressed out, busy person. And I know it's not that difficult to imagine, right? Yep. You're running all over the place, here and there, picking up kids, grocery shopping, working.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
Texting, all this stuff. And you're like, gosh, I really want a massage. I need a massage so bad. My shoulders are so tense. They hurt. And you think about that when you're laying in bed and you're like, I hope I remember to call that place and schedule it. Right.
Right.
Then the next day you get up, it's the same thing. You're busy, going back and forth, going to work, and you don't ever remember. You never remember to call them. You want to do it. It's in the back of your mind, but you're just not doing it for yourself. Right. And then the massage therapist calls you. You're like, oh, thank God you called. I've been wanting to schedule this and I've just been too busy. And yes, I want to get on the calendar. When's the next one that you have?
Right.
So was that massage therapist bothering you?
No.
No. What they did is they provided a service. By calling you, it was a service to you. And that is what we do. When we reach out to people to ask them if they want to come in for a pet portrait.
Yep.
If you really believe that what you do is a benefit to people, then it shouldn't be too much of a leap to believe that asking people to come in is also a benefit to them.
Right. Yeah. That's huge. That's a great way to flip that, because we just get so stuck in our own head with our own money beliefs and our own, like, feeling like, oh, I'm a terrible used car salesman. And, and I don't think any of us out here, no one listening to my podcast for sure, they're like, we're not out here trying to like scam people and be like, yeah, I'm just going to like scam people from their money, take as much money as I can for pet photography. Because quite frankly, if that was our goal, we probably wouldn't be in the photography industry.
That's why it's so important to know your why.
Right.
And, we're doing 200 sessions a month at an $800 average, right?
Yeah.
So, but is that my why? That's not my why. And that's not why, in all the challenges that I've been through, that is not why I kept going. And it wasn't to make money. And as long as, people, if they focus on the money part of it, then they're always going to be running into blocks like that. So, and there's another good book. I'm sure you've heard of it. You Are a Badass at Making Money.
Oh, and I love it. I love all of her books. Jen Sincero.
Helped me a lot when it came to the way that I think about money. And, and like I said, if we really believe that what we're doing and what we're offering to people is a benefit and a value and a service to them that helps them in their lives, then you wouldn't think of it that way. And then also, it's actually better for the clients that our products are expensive, because the more that they invest in it, the more they value it. They feel that they've treated themselves to something really nice. And they know it's an exchange of energy, right? We offer this amazing service, this amazing quality product, and it's going to last them the rest of their lives. It should be expensive. And there's nothing wrong with asking people to spend money with you. People want to spend money. Yeah. Not everyone is cheap. Like, I know a lot of people are frugal and cheap, but a lot of people really enjoy spending money. So,
on things that they value, and there's going to be, I always like to say, the example of like, I will never, I probably shouldn't say never, but I can't ever picture myself ever in a million years buying a designer handbag. It's just not my jam. Obviously there are plenty of people out there that do, but it's just not for me. However, I will drop a lot of money to fly business class so I can sleep, or to have a nice hotel, or go out to a nice dinner, because those are experiences that I value. So I think we tend to get, we sometimes think that everyone has the same value system that we do, or the same frugality, or the same view of money, and the same actually, what sort I'm looking for, kind of like thermostat of what is expensive and what is not. We think, oh my gosh, $2,000 for a pet session, that's insane. But there's plenty of other people that, oh, $2,000 is whatever. Like it's just great. Yeah, no, that's great. Let me do it. And they don't even think twice about it. And, even the people that maybe aren't of that demographic where $2,000 isn't a big deal, but they still value it. I had so many clients that, some of them waited a couple years, like they were in grad school, and then they came back to me in 2 years and like, oh my gosh, I've been waiting to finally like get my job and get my like financial act together so I could do this. And they were some of my best clients because they valued the experience so much.
Absolutely.
Yeah. One of the things I like to encourage people to do actually is to think about when they were purchasing something that was a bit of a splurge, but they were super excited about it. And that's what our clients often feel like. Like when you're purchasing that splurge item that you're like, oh my gosh, even if you're like, I can't believe I'm doing this, but so great. And then you value it so much. You're not projecting any negative thoughts to whoever's helping you get that item. You're likely like loving the experience and are so thankful that this person is helping serve you in that way. So yeah, I encourage all of you guys out there listening to think of a time that you went through that experience. And that's what our clients are feeling.
Yeah. And I hear a lot of guilt, right? And I've also heard a lot of pet photographers talk about how it almost feels kind of dirty to them to charge high prices, to try to make money doing this. And that really is a mindset about money. That book, you have to read the book, that you are a badass at making money, because, of all the people in the world, who should be the people who have a lot of money, lots and lots of money, right? The people who have kind hearts, the people who care about animals, the people who want to do the right thing. That's why one of my affirmations is I'm the perfect kind of person to be very, very rich. Right?
I love it.
And the more money that I have, the more good I can do, right? The more money that I charge for my service, the better the chances are we're still going to be in business, that we can grow. The more portraits we shoot, the more employees I can employ, and I can provide them with health benefits. I can give them a living wage. We're contributing tax dollars to the community. We're giving back to charity. We're able to grow and expand to serve even more pet parents, to provide them with lasting portraits for their walls for the rest of their lives. And that's because we charge the right amount of money for our services. And so I think that, reframing how people feel about making money and asking for money is very important, because as long as people view money as being dirty, or asking for money makes them feel guilty, or charging a lot of money, they think it's wrong, maybe they should start a nonprofit or work for a charity and not be in business. And business is not all about just making profit. It's about making an impact on people's lives. And if you're not successful, if you're not profitable, if you're not growing, you're going to be limited on the impact that you can make on your employees, on your clients, and in your community.
Yeah. Yeah. And if anyone's out there thinking like, I don't know, how much impact can I make as just a pet photographer? If you're in this business long enough, you will get plenty of messages from past clients telling you how much their photos mean to them now that pet is gone. So it is, such a personal impact. All right. We might not be changing the world or like stopping famine and wars, but we're making a huge impact to our clients and their relationship with that dog and just their memories for a lifetime. And that's worth something.
Yeah, it is. I really feel like, I don't know who you've been talking to, Nicole, but I really believe in what we do. We provide an amazing product for our clients, like something that is going to make them feel happy for the rest of their lives.
Yep.
This is not car insurance. Like, this is something special.
Yeah. Along that line of thought too, with the guilty of money and things like that, a lot of people are worried about the sales. I'm assuming with your 3 sales rooms that you guys are doing in-person sales for your business.
Oh yeah, of course.
Do you do it right after, or do you have people come back later on?
We do it right after.
Oh, nice. That's awesome.
Remember the benefit to the customer, right?
Yeah.
And people are busy and they do not want to be making multiple trips.
Yep.
It's
That's
all
fantastic.
about convenience and also efficiency for us too.
Yeah, I was going to say that makes it much more efficient on your end for your workflow. It's just boom, that the client is, you got the order, you put it through, it's moving along. I love it. But one quick also mindset for sales, if anyone's out there like, oh my gosh, I know I should do in-person sales. And truly, I believe, like to the depths of my soul, that it is such a better service for our clients when we are able to actually help them through that process. And like I said, our intentions are not to be like, I'm going to sell you this giant piece of wall art, even though you have no walls in your house. Like, no, we're sitting there to listen to how they can most enjoy this artwork and giving them the options. And truly, when you come at your sales from a place of service, it's my favorite part of the whole entire experience, because we get to take these images that we created together and come up with a plan that they're going to love and enjoy for all that time. So get out there, everybody.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, sales is a service, and I always think of it like, I don't do the sales anymore, but when I did, I always think of it like I'm about to make a new best friend. You know, you get in there, you start building rapport with people, you get to know them, you really are interested in what is the best interest for them. My goal is never a specific number in the sales room. My goal in the sales room is always to help them get what it is that is going to serve them the best, and to help them understand how maybe just a little bit more than what they're thinking would be great for them. And that it's a really good choice to do that.
Right.
So that's really my intention when I go in. And by the end of it, I feel like I'm part of their family. I'm helping them. I'm like, no, do you really want that one? I don't know. You know, I think the other one is better. And, you know, you get to know them and what's important to them. And, you know, if you are an empathic person, then you should love sales. You know, you're working together with somebody to help them to get something that they want.
Right.
So, yeah.
Right.
And there's another good book. It's kind of cheesy and it's kind of ridiculous, but it's Sell or Be Sold by Grant Cardone. And then, in there, he talks about how everyone's selling all the time. So, you know, salespeople get this, it's kind of this leftover sort of impression from that used car salesperson where they're lying, they're stealing, they're cheating. And that is not really fair, because we're all selling in different ways every single day. And there's a lot of really good techniques in there too. But Zig Ziglar has an amazing book on the basics of selling. And it's called, I think it is Secrets of Closing the Sale. Yeah, I think that is it. Zig Ziglar, Secrets of Closing the Sale. And in there, it's just really solid basic selling techniques. Highly recommend that book.
Yeah, it is. I just looked it up. Secrets of Closing the Sale for anyone who must. Oh yeah. Should I read that a long time ago? It looks really familiar. It's like the red arrow on the cover.
Yep. That's a really good one.
Yep.
But also, I mean, it goes back to the way that people are viewing money and asking for money. And until they change that, if they have a negative view of it, then of course they're not going to want to reach out to potential clients. Of course, they're not going to want to sell. And I recommend that they try. Let me try to say this, like, I don't want to offend anybody, but
this is said with love.
It's said with love that they might be happier if they found a job as a photographer working for a business rather than trying to make a business themselves, if really what they love doing is the photography.
Yeah.
Because it's a business. You have to do sales and marketing. And really, in our business, it is a business of sales and marketing. That is our business.
Every business, really, but especially ours, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. I say this all the time too, that, you know, if you are someone that you got into this and you love the craft of photography and you start to get in this and you're like, man, this business is not what I had thought of. Like, it's way too much. I really dislike the business. There's nothing wrong with being a hobbyist and enjoying the art, you know, but if when I say that, you're like, oh, but I don't want to just enjoy the art. Like, I want to run a business. Okay. Then you probably just have all these limiting beliefs and all this like mindset stuff that you need to work through to be able to push through that. Because I believe firmly that if you have a desire to do something, you have the ability to do it. The path might not be straight. The path might not be easy, but you have the ability to do that if you really want to. And doing this mindset work and just working through these things that we have and taking the action, even if you're scared to do it, is really the secret to success. And also, as you practice it, it becomes less scary. You know, like that first sales session we have, we're so nervous for that first session. And then you do it over and over. And yeah, you know, I still get a little nervous before a session, or even like before a sales session, or if there's one that's like, you know, an especially big number, I'm like, oh my God, I have to say this out loud. Like, and I still kind of get in my own head sometimes. But it gets easier as you practice it.
Yep. And I think that focusing on the why,
yeah,
have to figure out what your why is. It took me a long time to put my finger on exactly what my why is, because all I was like, I don't really know why. I have this drive. I want to make this business. I want to grow this business. I want to keep showing up. I'm obsessed about it. But if you were to say, why are you doing it? I'm like, I don't know. It's part of me. But right. I finally figured out what it was. And it's one of the first times that I created a beautiful, impactful, incredible portrait for someone. They saw it projected on the wall. They bought a print, and it was a 30 by 40 print. It was $800, and she was happy and cried with tears of joy to order that and give me her credit card for $800. That was the most fulfilling feeling for me. Very satisfying and very fulfilling. So to offer service to people that they really treasure and value, and that they're willing to pay that high price for it, it really gave me a sense of meaning, you know? And that's why I kept showing up. That's why I love this business so much, because what we provide to people means so much to them. Yeah. And that's what kept me showing up. And then when I have employees and I started seeing their lives improve because they were making a better wage working for me. 2 of them, they traded in their old beat up cars and got nicer, newer, safer cars. That was the first time I saw that happen. And then just yesterday, one of our employees, she went and got some dental work done that she'd been waiting to do for 2 years because she didn't have benefits. She didn't have insurance. Right. We offer health and dental benefits now. So she was able to go and get it done. And she was so grateful. And not just that she's grateful, but knowing that she's not in pain anymore, knowing that her teeth are healthier. And it's because of something I've done. And it's a result of all of my hard work. That's the second reason. That's my why. It has nothing to do with how much money I make. It never has. I actually have pretty low motivation for money. I just want to buy as much Starbucks as I want and clothes as many times as I want, and I will be happy. And so, you know, as long as you don't have really nailed down exactly what your why is for doing it, and also you have a guilty, dirty feeling when it comes to money, then of course it's going to be very difficult to reach out to those leads. It's going to be very difficult to learn how to do the sales because it comes from those core beliefs. That is where we make all of our decisions based off of.
Yep. Oh my gosh. This has been such a good conversation, and it totally went in a direction I was not expecting. But this is truly the most important piece of running a business, in my opinion. It's the underlying denominator that is amongst all successful businesses that I see, and the biggest thing that is lacking for people that are struggling. And, you know, I just want to encourage all of you guys out there, if you're maybe one of those ones that feels like it is struggling a bit, like you have the ability to do it, but let's just practice. Let's, read some of the books we mentioned about and just keep getting out there and practicing and taking that action. Erin, what kind of advice would you have? I'm thinking the 2 big takeaways for improving our business is definitely creating some systems and looking at metrics, and not being afraid of looking at those metrics and those numbers, because they're going to tell you so much. Do you agree, or is there anything else you want to add?
Well, I think we talked so much about, your why and mindset.
Yep.
It all stems from that. But also, I think we need to define what we mean when we say creating your systems. Because, what does that mean? Right?
Yep.
Just think of it like, I always associate it to Subway for some reason. When they go to plant another of the bazillion Subways, it's always the same colors, same way to make the sandwiches, same way to do every single thing because it is all written down. And when you write it down, it becomes a system because then you can analyze it. You can see how it can be better. It is consistent. It's replicable. It's teachable. So whatever you're doing in your business, just write it down. And then you can form it into a system. And then also, I think the consistency is really important part of that. Mm-hmm. And because that also improves your customer experience when it's consistent. And then also, if there's problems, you can, kind of pinpoint where they are. If you're doing it differently every single time, then, who knows where the problems are coming from.
Right.
And then the metrics, if you have automation, if you have a CRM, you should be able to enter in people's information every single time that you meet a new person, get a new phone call, get a new email, whatever that incoming lead is, put them in there. And then you should be able to generate a report that tells you how many new contacts you created in a certain period of time. And so all you have to really do is just enter in people's information when you get it. And then that's your first metric that you can measure. And I think that's a really good first step. And then measuring how many of those people you close, or how many of those people schedule a portrait is another way to say that. And then, and then write down your system for the moment that you talk to a new person to the moment that they actually schedule. And then once you measure that closing ratio and you've written down the system, now you can really start to improve that area.
Yeah. One thing too, that I think a lot of people drop the ball is the follow-up, that someone reached out to them and then maybe they, they get back to them and maybe they follow up once, but then they just kind of like let this person just kind of like, just assume they're not interested because they haven't gotten back. Do you guys have a process? I like to follow up until I hear that no. And I always kind of follow up after a while. Like if it's been like 3 times, I will even follow up with a little bit in there of, hey, just wanted to check in with you and like kind of give them an out. Like if this isn't the right fit, just let me know. And I, basically I won't follow up with you again. But I've gotten so many of my clients on that second or third follow up because they're busy. Like you said before, it's like that massage therapist calling me. I'm waiting for my phone to ring, massage therapist. But they're just busy. And then they find like, yes, I've been meaning to call you. Thank you for calling me back. So, yeah.
Yes. And I actually have a class. It's a webinar. It's Up Your Follow-Up. And it is specifically about this, about automating your follow-up system in order to close more. Because if you are trying to get 10 or 12 portraits a month and you're closing 10%, then that means you have to be coming in contact with 100 different people. Yep. And if all of that follow-up is in your head or Post-it notes on your desk, it's just not going to be done as well as it could be if you relied on automation more to do it. And automation in your CRM, it takes time. It's hard. It's complicated. You have to learn it. But it's what I think of as an activity that gives you time back. Because you invest that time in order to set it up, but then it's going to save you time and it's going to make you more money because you'll close more of those leads. And then there's also companies that outsource that work. You can go to Upwork. You can, what those other ones are. I'm not.
Yeah. Fiverr.
Fiverr. I'm glad you said it because I usually pronounce it wrong. I'm a fervor. I don't know why I call it that. But you can outsource that, have somebody set it up for you. And then, it's one and done. And then all you have to do is kind of tweak it. You can change things here or there sometimes. But automating your follow-up process, I think, is one of the key things that people can do to increase their closing ratio.
Yeah. I love it. All right, you guys have some homework out there. Erin, thank you so much for this conversation. I really enjoyed chatting business and going down all these rabbit holes with you. And I know our people did as well. Can you let them know where they can find you out there on the interwebs?
Yes, they can go to my website. It's bonillapetstudio.com, and it's Bonilla, 2 L's like quesadilla, bonillapetstudio.com. And the tab in the menu there for photographers. And they'll also see my Up Your Follow-Up course in that tab as well.
Nice. Awesome. You guys go check it out, and let Erin know if you enjoyed this wonderful conversation with her. And thanks again for being with us. And I'll see you next week. Bye, everybody.
Thanks.
Of course. Thanks, Erin, for being here. Thanks for listening to the Hair of the Dog podcast. This was episode number 147. If you want to check out the show notes for access to any of the resources that we mentioned, simply go to www.hairofthedogacademy.com/147.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Hair of the Dog podcast. If you enjoyed this show, please take a minute to leave a review. And while you're there, don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss our upcoming episodes. One last thing, if you are ready to dive into more resources, head over to our website at www.hairofthedogacademy.com. Thanks for being a part of this pet photography community.